Hey everybody, this is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and today I'm reviewing Earth Under Siege. I played this one a while ago, but I'm finally getting back to reviewing it, and disclaimer that I got a review copy of the core game of this one. In Earth Under Siege, 1 to 4 squad members will cooperatively work through missions based around stealth and combat, sort of XCOM-ish gameplay, and you can play these as one-offs or in a campaign where you'll level up your characters, get new equipment, and you're trying to sneak around sentries, break into security doors, snipe the opposition, all that good stuff. So let's get into 5 things to know about Earth Under Siege. So first, my number 5, which is a bit of a mix, is how you level up throughout the campaign. So you have this base record sheet, and you'll be able to level up different buildings in your base as you progress. And the later level ups can be really awesome, especially when you get into the Sci Lab or the Weapons Lab. But some of these are not as exciting, like the Armory just lets you keep gear cards that you've found throughout the mission, or the Med Bay lets you heal yourself a little bit better. And it's the same story for the gear and the decks for each character. At first, you're adding cards that are really not too different from your starter cards, and the new gear you get is often weaker than your starting cards. But once you get into the midpoint and later in the campaign and start getting to the level 2 and level 3 decks, these things become really awesome. So this is a campaign that's not going to excite you too much in the beginning, but can be really cool in the end. My number 4 point, which is a pro overall, is the mission design. And there are just a ton of missions here because you have these branching paths in the campaign, so you will only see about half of the missions each time you go through. And then on top of that, they have a ton of spec ops, little side missions you can do, although they are shorter. Now, not every mission here is a home run. Some have less interesting stealth. These defense missions where you're trying to fight off encroaching enemies, I find go a little bit overlong. But there's just so much to dig into here in the game, even if you don't get the expansion with more missions, so I really respect the variety in play on offer. My number 3 point, which is also generally a pro, is the opposition and all the enemies and events you'll face in your missions. So there is, again, a lot of variety here. You face different enemy types in each mission. They have their own spawn events when you encounter them. And these negative cards you draw at the every turn can teleport enemies, can make them show up in unexpected places, make them spot you, just kind of fun stuff you have to deal with in the stealth and combat modes. And you also get these complication cards that can change up the way the basic missions work. So all this can be really fun and also challenging as you play the game. And a lot of these elements level up with you as you go through the campaign in different ways based on your choices. The one caveat for this in me is that while the enemies are quite varied and cool once you start fighting them or in defense missions, when you're just sneaking around and engaging in stealth and trying to one-shot them and stuff, they tend to feel a bit more similar to each other, except for the strongest enemies. My number 2 point, which is also a pro for my taste, is the stealth system in the game. It's not necessarily my favorite stealth system ever, but I do think it works really well. When enemies see you, you have to roll a stealth check, but there is a lot of mitigation, so you don't tend to fail them. And even when you do, as long as cameras aren't looking at the enemy you're going to kill, you can try to take them out. And pathing your way through the facilities, figuring out how to take out this camera, how to sneak around this guard can be really cool, especially when you get into later missions where you can shut off the power, where you can sneak through access ducts. The more options they throw at you, the better I think the stealth gameplay is. Now that being said, I do sometimes wish there were more ways to deal with enemies in certain missions, like when cameras are watching them, it becomes a bit obvious how you have to tackle them. And while the stealth checks do have a lot of mitigation, if you fail one and you can't defeat the person, then the entire facility goes on alarm, and you're going to be fighting endless swarms of guys for the rest of the game. So some gamers won't love the sometimes all or nothing aspect of how stealth works. And finally, my number 1 point, which is a full pro, are the skill tests and actions in the game. So each character can take up to 6 actions a turn, although you only refresh 3, so you usually want to kind of carefully budget your actions as you go. Full characters have a deck of cards, and you can use these cards to boost other characters, to give you special abilities, to re-roll your dice. I love that. There's so many ways to re-roll your dice if you don't do well. You also get these focus tokens, and I love the resource management here because you can use these to power up your cards, to give you more dice in tests. So there's a lot of mitigation and options and choices on your turn. It's all great. But if you don't want to deal with all of that, you can turn some of your characters into squad members, simplified characters, and these are awesome. They get ongoing bonuses. They get better and better as your HQ levels up, and you don't have to mess with a deck of cards, and the game does a nice job giving you extra bonuses to modify the difficulty level. So I've played games with 2 or 3 full characters, and I've played games where only 1 character was real and the rest were squad members, and it's all been great. So overall, Earth Under Siege might fit your taste if you're a fan of stealth gameplay, if you like the XCOM video game series and want something that emulates that, or in general, if you want a campaign game that's heavy on the tactics and very light on narrative, not much reading here at all. But on the other hand, you might want to avoid this one if you don't like all or nothing stealth games. If you want a leveling system that is immediately immediately punchy and impactful, this one takes a little bit. Or if you want a game that's best in its class for stealth or tactical combat, I think this game does a really nice job with both, but is not perfect at either. And if you want to see the game in action, we have a full playthrough on the channel you can check out. Good gaming, everyone, and I'll see you at the next stop.